like to talk to you about something that happened yesterday when we went to do the computer store, but I stopped just before the bookstore, and I heard you say, your dad wouldn't like that book.
Yeah, and he wouldn't.
Pauly, who says that you know better what my dad would like than I do? I find it very...
Alan, this is so ridiculous. He can't, he can barely even keep his eyes open anymore. Why on earth would you want to send him a book?
Pauly, he likes Arnold Palmer, and it was good. There is nothing I can buy him. And this, I saw Arnold Palmer's picture, and I thought, he would like this book.
Right.
And all I get from you is...
all right.
All I get from you is negative
All right,
stuff.
well, I said at the time, I was sorry, and I said you should go ahead and get the book.
I know, by then it was too late. I don't
Too
care.
late for what? There was no reason. Now it's all my fault that you didn't get the book, and you could have gotten the book. There was no reason
Never mind.
not to get... Well, that was what you said then.
That's what I'm saying.
And there's no reason for you not to get that book. It's not my fault that you didn't get the book, and I don't want you to blame it on me.
One of the things that we've found over the years in teaching some communication skills is that sometimes two people, even though they may love each other or like each other a lot, it doesn't make any difference. They still have two different speaking styles. They still have two different ways of looking at something. And so one of the things that we've found helpful is to do what we call closing the loop and allowing the receiver to give back the message that was sent, and to be listening not just to the words, but to listen with your heart. And so we found that very helpful, no?
Well, yeah, and this kind of listening helps the receiver to come around and look at this situation from the other person's perspective. In the illustration that we just gave you, Alan was really hurt by my response to his desire to buy a book for his father. I was thinking, from my side of things, that it was a waste of money to buy a book for his father, who is elderly and in failing health. I didn't see the reason for it, and my first impulse was to say, forget it, whereas...
And all I felt was rejection.
Alan felt rejected and hurt, and when he mentioned it to me, then I became defensive. And when I then came back to him apologizing, he wasn't receptive to it. So at that point, neither one of us was seeing where the other person was coming from.
And didn't care at that point. And so now we're going to do an exercise where we'll close the loop with each other and try and hear the other one out so we know where they're coming from. Pauly, I'd like to talk to you using the skills that we teach everybody else about that issue we had with the book and my dad and stuff.
Okay.
When I passed by the bookstore and saw that book, First I saw the picture of Arnold Palmer, and I remember my mom and dad used to love Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, and all these, and it was $5.99 for this book, so it wasn't a matter of cash, but what I wanted was to get something that I know he would recognize and that he would like, and I thought, I'm going to tell Pauly. And so I told you, and the first thing I got was a negative response, or what I perceived as a negative response, and it just sort of quelled my excitement for it, and I thought, forget it, we'll just go on to the computer store.
So can I feed that back to you? What I'm understanding is that when we were walking by the bookstore, you saw the picture of Arnold Palmer on the book. You saw that it was only $5.99.
And I felt excited.
Okay, you felt excited because it brought up memories of your parents enjoying golf and Arnold Palmer, and so you wanted to buy that book as something to give to your dad.
Right. And when I heard you and your response, it was like a wet blanket, and I was irritated at that point and felt like this happens a lot.
Okay.
And so I wasn't interested in talking anymore.
All right. So when I responded negatively toward it, your immediate response was, well, this was like a wet blanket to you. It just sort of dashed your expectations for doing something for your dad, and then you got so irritated that you didn't want to talk about it anymore. Okay.
And what I would like is sometimes, like more times than not, I would appreciate if there was some kind of positive response first, or even just feeding it back to me what I'm saying before you just tell me, I don't think that's a good idea at all.
Okay, so what you would really like is that in the moment that I would respond positively instead of negatively, or feedback to you rather than just
I would
reacting
say,
to
it's
the moment.
probably coercive to want you always to respond positively. You don't have to always respond. But if you could just say, oh, so you're really excited about, in other words, just mirror it back like we teach everyone else to do.
Okay, so so what you would like is if in the moment I could just reflect back to you what you're saying rather than
that would
just
really
reacting.
help me.
Okay,
How about you?
Can I share with you what happens in the moment is a response that it was just really hard for me to respond positively, and I know that I hurt you in that moment, and I would like to try not to do that, but once I recognized that my first response was hurtful to you, because I could see immediately the expression on your face just dropped, and I did see that.
Yes.
And then I felt bad, and I felt guilty for hurting your feelings in that moment.
Okay, so hold on. So you recognize that sometimes your immediate reaction is negative, and you saw that my face dropped and that I was feeling bad about it, and you'd like to change that if you can.
Right. And I know that my first response was just, even though it was only $5.99, I thought, why spend the money on something for your dad when he probably wouldn't even enjoy it?
Okay, so you didn't think he'd enjoy it. It wasn't about the money. You just thought, this is not a good idea.
Well, it was about the money a little bit, but I didn't think it was a good idea. But when I saw your face, I thought that for you it wasn't even so much about the book as about doing something for your dad and calling back that memory. But when I then tried to apologize to you,
it was over.
It was over.
All right, so you saw the reaction and you wanted to repair it, but you couldn't.
Right.
And so then what?
Well,
how did you feel?
Well, I felt bad that I couldn't repair it, but I knew at that point that it was something that was just going to have to wait, because.
And so what in the future would you want to do?
Well, in the future, what I would want would be for you. I know that you would like me to be more positive in the moment. What I would want would be for you to not just react to me, and to be a little quicker to come back to me and say, you're right, this isn't your fault, this is more about me.
So you don't want me to be hurt when I'm hurt?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
What are you
saying? If you are hurt, and I recognize that you were hurt, I would like your hurt to not turn into irritation toward me.
Okay, you'd like me not to get irritated when I get hurt.
That's right. That's what I would like.
Okay. And you can try and do that. If you can do it, that's great.
But I think that what ended up happening was that we had to have a little cooling off period and then come back and discuss this situation a little bit later.
Right.
And eventually you did buy the book. You did go back and buy the book.
I did she said she was sorry, and we lived happily ever after.
Yes,
We
as
hope
you
do
can
the same thing.
see.
What?
Alan and Pauly, could you just talk a little bit about the necessary to slow down the communication process
Sure.
when you're working cross-culturally? I know you just came back from Thailand.
Right.
And had a great experience there in the marriage retreat. But
Right.
just share a little bit about the necessity to slow down in order to really listen.
Well, even if it's not cross-culturally in another language, this is cross-cultural communication right here. A man and a woman talking is cross-cultural communication. Because, I mean, most of the time women tend to be feelers, men tend to be thinkers. Men tend to think and do. Women tend to feel and then do. Not always, so don't hold me to that. But when you are highly emotional about a subject, when it really means a lot to you, the ability to slow down communication and use some skills of feeding back and in your own words, telling the person, so I'm hearing you say you were irritated, you were upset. It can even be a negative thing, but it helps to slow it down like that so that you can understand the other person. And that's our goal in communication, is first understanding, and then we can talk about what we're going to do with the situation. And in a cross-cultural setting, there are all kinds of reactions that I may have about the way this culture is. I may make a judgment, good or bad, has nothing to do with that. They're just different. And so to try and express and to feed back what the other person is saying, that's going to really help them feel valued and feel like you're in the ball game with them.
What we found in the situation that we were just in was that there were people there who had been born into that culture, raised in a Western culture, gone back to the original culture of their birth, and were wanting to change the culture of their birth, and that was difficult for them because they're trying to bring in Western ways of doing things into a culture that was very embedded. So even though they were understanding what people were saying, they weren't accepting of it. And so part of this cross-cultural thing, just like in our male-female differences, right, and in our dealing with our own issues, the thing that has to take place is that you come around to the other person's side and look at this issue from that other person's side and value their perspective on that situation, and then they need to come around and look at it from your side of things too and understand where you're coming from. And in the process of dealing with the issue, you still value each other and value the validity of their perspective of this issue that you're dealing with.
Right. We think that'll really help.